Hello, hello. Good morning, traders. How are we doing? Hope everybody is doing fantastic on this Wednesday morning. It's Wednesday. That occurred to me 2 hours ago. I was thinking it was Tuesday, and it's Wednesday. I forgot about our 3-day weekend. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Big sell-off today. I guess there was some numbers that came out. I believe it was had to do with what did it have to do with? I need to look and see. I know there were some numbers that came out today, some economic data. Let me see what it was. Maybe somebody in chat is going to tell me before I get there. U.S. retail sales. That's what it was. And the markets did not like those numbers, I suppose. Or perhaps there's a little bit more to it than that. Maybe it's not that the market didn't like those numbers. Maybe the market was just been setting up to do this for a minute. If you guys follow the stream and you have sat in on any of the little price action lessons that I've given over the weeks and months, you would have seen on the cues here, huge break in structure. Right? And you can go to multiple time frames and see this. Oops. Need to turn off these bots. There we go. You would have seen this, right? You got the low, brought you to the high, huge break in structure. When you come back up to test, you expect failure. And what did they do? They failed. So it's at an interesting spot now. We'll have to see what they do on the SPY. It's pretty much the same look. Not quite exactly the same, but same idea. Big break of structure right here. Not as clean as the Qs. You have to, if you go to the futures, zoom out a little bit here on ES. As I've learned it over my time, if I'm trading the SPY, I'm looking at the ES. If I'm trading the Qs, I'm looking at the NQ. And here on the ES, pretty clean, pretty clear break of structure of these lows. Nice retest. Excited to see what they do here. We're getting to an interesting little 15-minute level. What's up, Nova? There's a little spot here that I've been keeping my eye on. I'll show you guys on the old NQs here. This guy, really similar kind of idea, but in reverse. You have the low that took you up, right? Let me color this a different color. There you go. You got the low that took you up. They never tested this guy, did they? But you did have a break-in structure right here. So, support 668. It's an interesting idea. We'll see if it works out. Nova, let's talk about this gap. You just redacted your gap message, but what did you say about it? Hope you guys are all doing great. Again, it's Wednesday morning. My name is Jason Krutzky. It's a pleasure to be with you today. If you are tuned in, perhaps you're here for a reason. Hit me with your questions. This is TrendSpider Office Hours. This is the show where I hang out with you guys and we discuss all things TrendSpider. I'm happy to look at charts. You know, if you've got charts you want to take a look at, we can do that. If you want to talk through a trade idea, we can do that. If you got a question about TrendSpider, just generally speaking, we can answer that question for you. So hit me with what you got. I'm here today for you guys. Really nice bounce here on the old NQs. And again, that's kind of what we would expect from these lows. Kind of just somewhere in here, you would expect this to happen. So the next little level that I got my eye on is kind of up in here. They tested this spot up around 816 or so. They tested this spot like 8 times before they broke down. And then once they broke down, we didn't even get any sort of secondary retest, like nothing. They just broke and ghosted it lower. So perhaps this bounce will yield us something a little bit higher here. We'll have to see. Well, where on what chart, Nova? Let's talk about gaps. I'm gonna dig around and look for these gaps that you're talking about, Nova, because I'm not certain. You talking about just this? The gap down today? Couple charts back. I'm not sure. I mean, gaps have a tendency to fill, yes. But do they have to fill instantly? No. Right? Gaps don't have to fill instantly. They can fill eventually. Like, for example, let's go to a bigger time frame and see. Got a huge gap here on SPY from November that hasn't filled yet. Right? Like, sure, they can definitely fill. And they probably will at some point. But assuming that a gap's just going to fill because it's a gap and because it's a recent gap doesn't. That's I think that's a poor assumption to make. I wouldn't generally assume that. That's just me. But there are a handful of you here. Nova, thank you for tuning in. If you have other questions, please hit me with them. There are a handful of you guys here. What are you doing here? How can I help you today? What are you watching? What do you want to take a look at? Wow, this is very quickly becoming a monster opportunity over here on the NQ. So this is a good lesson. Seriously, this is a really, really great price action trading lesson. If you have ever been interested in learning price action concepts, Nova, this is it. If you've ever been interested in learning price action concepts, this is a great lesson here on the NQ. First thing that I always look for when I'm looking for places that I want to take trades is a clear, identifiable level on multiple time frames. If you can't see it on multiple time frames, it's probably not a super valid level. Doesn't mean it can't work, but it's probably not a super valid level. But if you can get it on multiple time frames, then that's good. I like to be able to see, and then depending on what time frames you see that level on is how you should be thinking about how long you want to be in a trade for, right? Like if you see a good spot on a 5-minute chart, you don't want to be long that thing for a week, you know, or you don't want to be short that thing for a week. You want to be basing your trade off the time frame. So in this particular instance, you had a clear low, right? This pivot low right here. And in this price action trading style, when you come to an area on the chart, or when you break structure the way this did, right? You have a clear defined low, and then you break the structure. So you're in a downtrend with a clear defined low. You make a higher high, which is, you shouldn't be doing that in a downtrend. You should be making lower highs. So when you make that higher high, then you anticipate some sort of pullback to where you made that break of structure. So kind of in here. Oops. In this area, right? You expect a pullback to somewhere in here. And, you know, depending on your risk profile, you guys have heard me talk about R before. You know, I like these sorts of trades because they generally have pretty decent R. You're getting short, or you're getting out of the trade below the low, right? And you're looking to get into a long biased position in this particular case, somewhere in here. So you utilize your position drawing tool, and you define your R. And so you have to see where the levels are that are of interest to you. Well, we talked about this low as being the level where I want to be out of this trade. I don't want to be long if it's making a new low. But we also talked about this level up here where they lost, right? They had tested this a zillion times. Like I said, like 7 or 8 times before this big breakdown this morning. So maybe this is the level that I'm trading against, right? I'm trading against this low, looking for some sort of test back into the level that they lost this morning. So the R is clearly there, especially if I can kind of get an entry near a low. So kind of looking for entries closer to this, kind of down in here. What they do, here you go. Your R is 4, clear, clean. This is a really great example of you know, just a good risk to reward opportunity and a really decent level to take one of these types of trades off of. So this actually, you know, you asked what my go-to setup is. This is really kind of like my go-to setup. I'm looking for these levels higher and lower, above and below, that could play as nice pivots. How do you know if your option long-term is 80% sure it's going to work? You don't, I don't know exactly what that question is, if I'm honest. But let's talk about percentages, right? Like when I think of trade accuracy, how often a trade is going to work, I do not think in terms of, or I don't put importance on the amount of times that it works. I put importance on the R that the trade yields, right? So if you're constantly taking 3 R trades, then you only have to win, or you only have to have a profitable trade 1 out of 3 to go even. If you're taking 4 R trades, it only has to be profitable 1 out of 4 times, right? Because you're countering those losses with your 1 winner. If you missed the lesson on R last week, there is a office hours titled "What is R?" Take some time and watch it. It's like a 20-minute lesson where I talk about how R is measured. And when you utilize the strategy tester, what you're going to find, let's just pull something up real quick. And I'm just going to pull up a random strategy. I'm going to run it on NQ here. I don't care what the results of this strategy are. I'm not trying to, it's actually performs okay. What you're going to find is your risk to reward is completely in line with, or all of the values contained within tabular data are going to affect one another. And so your risk to reward is going to impact the amount of winning trades you have to have. So although this particular strategy on this particular asset on this particular time frame does not necessarily beat buy and hold, right? 20%, 21% return versus about 34% on just buying and holding. Your risk to reward ratio, which is 6.17, is high enough that your win rate only has to be 21% for this strategy to kind of be navigable and a strategy that you can utilize. Now, you may deem that this is not worth your time, that the performance of the strategy, since it doesn't beat the buy and hold of the asset, that the performance isn't worth it. And that's certainly arguable. But the big thing that you have to understand is that the win rate, as your win rate increases for your strategy, generally speaking, your risk to reward ratio is going to decrease. It's very rare to find strategies that have really high risk to rewards and also really high win rates. It's a scale that impacts each other, right? They're scales that impact each other. So as your win rate goes up, the return that you should expect per trade should go down, and vice versa. There is a really nice graph. Let me think about where that really nice graph is. Where is it? Let me think. Darn. me see. Actually, darn, I don't know where it is. It's somewhere. I wish I knew. I'm just hunting for this risk to reward graph. Maybe this. I mean, this is kind of it. Here you go. Here you go. This is it. So you see how essentially like your win rate generally, as it increases, the amount of your return is usually going to decrease. So anyway, all that to say, I think the importance should be placed on the return and not on the win rate. Or you should have equal importance on the two things. They should influence one another. Does that make sense, Nova? Hopefully that makes sense. There are a few others of you here. Please say hello. Don't make me sit here and talk to myself. Say hello. Tell me your name, where are you tuning in from, and what brought you here today. If you're a TrendSpider trader, let me know that. If you're not a TrendSpider trader, perhaps you're here because you're thinking about becoming one. You're thinking about getting an account. And if that's the case, I'm curious to know what it is that brought you here. What are you curious about? You know, this time is for y'all, right? This time is for you guys. I'm here for y'all. So you guys tell me what you want to take a look at. While I wait, I'm going to take a look at some things. On the platform, if you're not aware, we can automatically detect, the platform can automatically detect a bunch. Oh, nice. Right on, Nova. Well, thank you for being here. Definitely do appreciate it. And like I say, you know, this time is for y'all. So if you have questions, if you're curious about the platform in any way, any questions you got, hit me with them. In the meantime, what I was going to say was the platform can automatically identify a bunch of different chart patterns, broadening patterns, channels, double tops, double bottoms, head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders, triangles, wedges, and so on. And because these patterns are automatically identifiable, I can scan for them. And I can scan for setups related to them. So one of my favorite little things to look for are these falling wedge breakouts. The scanners are all pre-built. So I like to look for these things, especially as we are, you know, right now with the market selling off. I would guess on smaller time frames, we're not going to see a whole heck of a lot here. But what I'll do is I will probably like midday, I'll start looking for this sort of stuff. Let me turn this off. I'll start looking for this sort of stuff on smaller time frames, specifically. There we go. Just to see what's out there, you know, if the market does try and kind of catch a bid and start building out a bottom, we're probably going to be seeing quite a few of these being built as the day progresses. Might even go to even a smaller time frame. I'll go to a 5 minute. Sean, what's happening? Where would you find strategies that have been posted on Twitter and Facebook, but I didn't import them at the time? Do I have to go back to those and find them, or are they all in one place? That's a great question. First place where I would look for strategies, well, yes, I would go back into Twitter to find them. There is not a repository of them, of all the ones that we share. If you go into your strategy tester, there are going to be some shared ones already pre-built in the in this kind of like it's just a little area for a bunch of saved strategies. So anything that you build is going to be set in here, and then anything that we have shared to the community is going to be shared here as well. You can also take a look if you click on this question mark button and you go to join our official Discord server. There are some posted in there as well. If you had specific ones you were looking for, let me know and I could look into it for you too. I'm going to also show you this really quick. Well, actually a couple things related to strategies. If you go in your visual scripts right up here, click on this. This is going to open up your script manager. Your script manager holds like 700 different scripts that are pre-built with all kinds of different conditions that you might be interested in and looking for. You guys have heard me talk about this a lot. If you type in like VWAP here, you're going to get a bunch. Everything that's labeled sample is going to be something that's available on your end of the platform as well. You can get a bunch of different things here. So price above year-to-date anchored VWAP, price below highest high anchored VWAP, price below VWAP, price bounce touch breakthrough monthly, and so on. There are tons of different things that are pre-built here for you. So you might want to, if there's a particular strategy that you're thinking about, but you're not quite sure how to script it, I would check your script manager for those conditions first. So, you know, VWAP decreasing, VWAP increasing, VWAP bounce. Maybe you want to, you know, be long a VWAP bounce or something. You can take this script and you can send it across the platform. So you can turn it into a multi-factor alert. You can turn it into an entry or an exit in your strategy tester. You can send it to your scanner and look for names meeting that criteria right now. You can send it to your sidebar. Utilize it as a smart checklist. Excuse me. So if I wanted to, I could say, like, I could send this to my entry criteria in my strategy tester. I could look up another one and say, I don't know, let's just look up VWAP again. And maybe I want to say, I don't know what I'd want to use as my exit here, but, you know, pick one of these things. Maybe price crossing down, and send this to the backtester as the exit. And there you go, pre-built. I mean, essentially, right? Like, I didn't have to do anything. I just defined the things that I wanted to define as my entry and exit, and I'm off to the races. So it's not one of those pre-built strategies that we share, that we'll occasionally share on our Twitter account. But it is a way for you to easily build out strategies without having, you know, any real knowledge of how to script things yourself. But again, if there was a particular strategy, Sean, that you were kind of curious about and that you wanted to download, let me know and perhaps I can send you the link to it as well. What's up? Why not? How are you? Are you having a lovely day today? Half awake? Why not? What are we getting into today, man? You're here all the time. What are you curious about today? Let me go back and see what's popping over here on the falling wedge breakout scan. If you want to as well, for those of you who are not familiar, any of these shared scanners you can create your own versions of. Okay, right on, Sean. No problem at all. Happy to help you. Like I said, you know, do a little research, scroll through the TrendSpider Twitter account. You know what? Let me ask really quick. Let me ask something. Let me talk to the fella who runs our Twitter account and see if he stores them anywhere. Because I do have this. Give me 1 second. I just had a thought. All right, so I know that we shared this one recently, or at least I'm almost certain that we did. This was a fair value gap retest. So this was looking for shorts on Tesla on fair value gap retest below the 20 SMA or something. There's a link to that strategy. Here's one that we shared for Bitcoin using Williams Alligator. I'm just going to link a few here for you. Here's a Webster's power trend long on Apple. It's our friend Mike Webster. Theory of his. Here's some interesting ones for you to play around with. They may not be what you're looking for. You know, if you have particular things that you're looking for, let me know. With the Fed turning dovish, is there any way to track prime rate against SPY historically? No, I don't think so. I'm not, Brian, if I'm honest, I am not familiar with prime rate. Let's learn together, huh? Among the most widely used benchmark in setting home equity lines of credit. Interesting. Talk to me about your what you're thinking here, Brian. I'd like to understand this. So, hey, you know, Sean, one thing you can do, let me show you this. One thing you can do is you could go up to search and go to TrendSpider. So, and then don't select it, just press enter, and then go to advanced search by clicking on the 3 dots right here and go search settings, or rather go advanced search. And then type in strategy. Actually, let's do it here. Let's go strategy, strat. Yeah. And then accounts, go TrendSpider. And then search. Here you go. And this is going to yield you. I don't know if I'll be able to share this with you. Maybe I will. I'll try. Give that a go. So is there any way to track prime rate against SPY, etc.? Yeah, so I don't know if there's a ticker for prime rate. That's an interesting thought. How the, I guess, so the theory is how the prime rate affects SPY performance. Is that the idea? You would think that the prime rate increasing, right? So the presumably it's, most widely used benchmark in setting home equity lines of credit and credit card rates. So if the prime rate, I don't know, talk me through this. This could be benchmark against any interest sensitive investment like REITs. Seems energy utilities took hit in higher, longer Fed Reserve strategy. Yeah, it makes sense. I would generally assume if the markets are increasing, then the prime rates are going down. Just kind of like historically, right? That's what I would assume. But I could be wrong about that. I could be totally wrong about that. But that's what kind of makes sense to me. Give me 1 second, y'all. That's a great question, Brian. Let me do this while we're, you know what? I wonder, actually, dude, let's see something. We do have Federal Reserve economic data on the platform. Let's go to SPY here. Now let me see if prime rate is on here. Ah. All right. So perhaps this is what you're after? Totally makes sense. Is this kind of what you're thinking, Brian? Kind of monitoring essentially just kind of comparing price action to the curve. I mean, it seems like they go pretty well in lockstep. I'm not seeing any like real, aside from this period coming out of the GFC. Yeah, you can't backtest this, unfortunately. You can't utilize Fred data in the strategy tester. The time coming out of GFC where things stayed flat, obviously markets liked that. But then even as they increased, markets continued to gain. Here you have a bit of a strange occurrence, maybe slightly different than what you see elsewhere on the chart, where prices continue to push higher into I guess the last quarter of 2019, where the prime rate started to decrease. So here you saw a little bit of you know, like they weren't vibing with one another. Then you have the big decrease, big drop during COVID. Things stayed flat up until the highs. As soon as prime rate increased, then again, you had the same issue, right? You had another kind of divergence here where you saw price decreasing and the rate increasing. I don't know. I don't really know if this thing moves enough and often enough to like gather any sort of hard evidence. But, you know, I'm certainly no expert. And I'm not even certain. Let's see what this looks like. So this is essentially the same chart, but just smooth. I'm checking to see if there's any other options. Maybe the day. Yeah, I don't know, Brian. I guess the big inconsistencies that I kind of see kind of in here, kind of right before COVID. And I may not be answering your question here because I know you're talking about strategy testing. But right there, and then this whole period, essentially all of 2022, when rates were increasing and price was decreasing, but rates continued to increase, and we came off that bottom. I don't really see too many other instances where this thing wasn't increasing with price increases and decreasing with price decreases. There's a little bit of a lag here. We can check Qs and see. Bit more difficult to see on the Qs, but pretty much same relationship from what I can tell. Excuse me, y'all. Excuse me. I'm tired. May not be granular enough relationship to macro to micro. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, there might be like a third or fourth or even fifth value to this equation that you're kind of on the hunt for. Perhaps when XYZ things happen, as opposed to just X. But hey, now you know that we got Fred data on the platform. I'm honestly not wildly familiar with all things Fred, but I know that there are lots of items in here that you can kind of check out. Oh, excuse me, gosh. So I don't know, y'all. What else? Sean, were you able to get that search worked out? Hopefully you were. Why not? You've been learning about zigzag. Nice, man. It's definitely one of my favorites. Definitely one of my favorites indeed. So a couple things real quick, y'all. I want to show you. We have not announced these things yet. They're not quite yet available, but I want to let you know that they're coming. The first thing, so I'm just going to grab something random here. So this is coming. Run the scanner on a schedule. We're currently testing it right now. You'll be able to define the days and times that you want to run scans. And you'll be able to have these scans sent directly to your email. And I imagine this functionality is going to grow and change over time, but this is a first step into that auto scanning that some of y'all have been asking for. Another thing PE ratio indicator coming. For those of you who are into that sort of thing. We got PE ratio and PE ratio comparison, which is a pretty cool one. I've got this preset to a couple of the big tech names, NVIDIA, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, as I've been kind of learning about how this works. Because again, I'm a technical guy. These fundamentals are outside of my wheelhouse. So I'm still figuring it all out personally. But these are both custom indicators that you will be able to download to your account. And you can go in and you'll be able to create your own custom comparison PE ratio indicators, which is cool for comparing, you know, assets in the same space, or comparing high flyers against each other, see which one has the best PE or the worst or whatever, those sorts of things. And you'll be able to compare up to 5 tickers per comparison. So you can just create multiple versions of this. You can make maybe a tech one or a healthcare or whatever. Pretty cool. Ooh, let's do this real quick. The NQ trade idea really turning into quite a banger at this point. Remember, we were looking at this area in here. I believe that on the ICT side, they're calling these breaker blocks. This is a new thing for me. I'm learning that. But really, really nice response to that breaker block pivot area. Now we got to keep our eyes up here. What are you guys watching today? Anything of any interest to y'all? Tesla getting rocked still. Actually, this is 4 hour looking like. Ooh. This is kind of interesting. Same idea. Kind of an untested spot. It's way lower, isn't it? We're right at the anchored. Ooh, that's interesting too. Right at the anchored view at from the January lows, last year's lows. It's a big spot. Nvidia. What's up with Nvidia? Monster. Well, so, all right. So first thing on Nvidia, actually talking about that PE ratio indicator. You know, they talk about recently, they've been talking about, or traders have been talking about this idea of Nvidia being cheaper now than it's been in quite some time. And you can actually see it clearly on the PE ratio indicator, right? You could see where, because of their earnings per share drastically increasing back in August of last year, that PE ratio just took a nosedive. It is quite impressive. I have a suspicion. I have a suspicion that perhaps it might cool off a little bit. You've got this, right? You've got your weekly fibs from high to low of this kind of consolidation phase, right into the 1.5 and the 1.618. So those are going to be important. Right? Getting up and over those is going to be pretty key. But initial targets, when you're going into all-time highs, that 1.618 seems a pretty decent place to catch a bit of a rejection. Let's see something. I just want to see what RSI is looking like. Yeah, so like really pretty gnarly divergence on RSI here. Which, you know, it's not the end-all be-all. Price can correct through time as well. But I mean, that's a pretty big divergence. Right into a big weekly level of resistance too. Let's see on this one if there's anything there. Yeah, so you have the 200% extension. Look at this too. Your 200% extension from the previous all-time highs down to the October 2022 lows right up here, 580. So another decent spot to maybe potentially cool, right? Like it's coming into some really big spots where it really might have a shot of slowing down for some time. It will be interesting to see if it plays out this way. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? Utilities have been down with higher interest rates. AEP, POR, WC, etc. Those will rotate back for gains. Let's see. Is that what's the utilities? Is it? No, it's not XLE. Is it XLI? No. U? Ah, XLU. Whoa, this is a tough chart. What the heck is going on here? Let's go bigger time frame. Way bigger. Ooh. Yeah, Brian, I mean, the only thing you really got going for it is a potential higher low relative to the COVID lows. This thing is just in a solid downtrend, though. I mean, down to the weekly, I could see what you're seeing, at least on the daily. It's certainly been strong since October. They just made new highs here relative to the pivot that took us down. But they didn't even hold. They just pushed above and failed. So that seems pretty important. 65.60 on XLU. Let's do this. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm so tired today. Anchored VWAP from these lows, October lows. Brings you into $61. You got a little gap there too. Shout out, homie who was talking about gaps earlier. But for me, as a PA guy, 65.60 pretty important. Unless they can really start like making proper new highs. I don't know. I have trouble with this because they didn't really gain anything. And when I say gain, what I mean is, let's just pretend all of this doesn't exist. I mean, come up here, hold for a minute, and then fail. I don't mind if it fails, but you want to see it hold for a little while. And here you just didn't see any of that. You just made a new high and failed. So that's me personally. You know, if you go down to smaller time frames, then sure, yeah, maybe you'll see it a little bit. You know, there are a couple of hourly candles traded above and held above, but mostly it looks like they were just stopping people out, right? You had a bunch of people who were short against these highs. They stopped them all out and they reversed. What they do here is pretty important, though. You want to see them definitely hold this. Because again, you're in this uptrend making these higher lows, right? Here's your most recent higher low. Well, they just put in a lower high right here, technically. So if they fail and they make a new low, then you got to anticipate the continuation of that kind of rolling over. I don't know. That's kind of how I think about it with PA. Let's look at some of these individual tickers that you talked about. Looks exactly the same. Looks exactly the same. Oh, this one, oh, let's see, WEC. WEC. Yeah, these all look exactly the same, huh? This is actually crazy. Let me see what these yearly charts look like. Yeah, I mean, they're extended, maybe. I don't know. This is not my area. I don't know anything about utilities, so I'm not going to try and claim like I know what I'm doing here. I'm just looking. Yeah, so I was looking at this too. I was looking at Zim. I mean, Zim is pretty darn interesting. Although maybe a little overdone. I had done a little bit of analysis on it, I guess. Let me see. You had that 200 period SMA, which it has not seen the light of day on that for a while. Since what? June last year. So they're holding up and over that to May 2023, this big gap down anchor view app. Let's do this. Let's check out seasonality. I don't know. This ticker is pretty new, right? It's only been around a couple of years. Yeah. There was, let me see something real quick. Oh, gosh. Excuse me. I can't think of the ticker for the shippers, like ETF. If you remember it, let me know. Looks like these guys have had a steep drop in PE. Stone isn't STNE. Isn't this a shipping company too? I know this is one that Buffett was all over some time ago. Oh, no, never mind. I was wrong. It's fintech. I was way off. Well, let's do this then. We're going to go dry bulk. Nope, shipping. Freight. I think we have a shared watch list. Let me see. I really thought we had just a shipping one. I could be wrong. APM. Marine transport. Just call it shipping. It'd be so much easier. All right, let's see what's jamming over here. Yeah, because there was something related to the Suez Canal, right? Like the Suez was getting stopped up. I don't follow this stuff. I don't really know. But some of these looking like monsters. Sting. That's the ticker I was thinking of. Sting, not Stone. This is interesting. They were talking about this morning on the All-Star Charts morning show. Kind of like this is a big area for Sting here. All routes, extra 14 days around the Horn of Africa. Wow, crazy. Got it. Yeah, and that makes sense. But again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know really anything about these. I would imagine that maybe some of these, do all of these shippers kind of utilize that port? Do they all utilize, is every shipper having to deal with this? I guess is the big question. Every once in a while, these low float shippers get crazy moves. I remember early on in my trading days when I knew absolutely nothing, there were big runs on shippers that were just going nuts. Tops and dries in these things. PXS, all of these tickers I remember all of them. CTRM. All these low float ones that rip and then they do offerings into them. Yeah, definitely really interesting. I'm kind of surprised that the cruise ships, I guess marine transport, so cruise ships would be a part of that, but the cruise ships aren't dealing with this, right? Or are they? I don't know. What do I know? I don't know. Got it. Okay. There you go. Makes sense. I'm almost curious then, like, is this common? So if it's more... By common, I'm just looking to see kind of how these things tend to perform around this time of the year. Excuse me. Nothing super obvious here. Anyway, guys, we are running up into an hour. If nobody has any other TrendSpider related questions, then I'm going to probably get on out of here. So this is your last call. TrendSpider questions, if you got them, hit me with them. If you don't have any, then I'm going to step out of here. Hopefully, Sean, hopefully those links helped you with strategies. If nothing else, we learned how to search Twitter in an advanced way. Yeah, it's a good skill to have. But yeah, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Last call. And Q coming back into that spot. Big spot. What they do here is probably pretty important. It's a big level, you can see. Big level that they've tested many, many a time over the past couple of sessions. They lost it in a very powerful way. We'll see what they do when they get back to it. There's also this little guy right here too. Kind of smaller time frame version of this guy, right? Hopefully you guys see that. Do you see? Old high made a new low, right? So break of structure right here. Broke structure. Perhaps they're going to come back in and test some of this stuff too. Have to see what they do around here. Have to see what they do around here. If they get to it. We will soon find out because it looks like we're going to get there sooner than later. Y'all, I'm going to jump. I hope everybody learned a little something today. We didn't dig too deep into TrendSpider functionality, but that's okay. We don't have to do that every day. You got a little price action lesson. If you guys need me, holler at me. You know where to find me. If you don't know where to find me, I'm right here. But also, I'm on Twitter at Krutzky Trades. If you ever have any questions about TrendSpider, you need some help with something, you don't know how to do something, whatever it might be, hit me up. And I will help you with whatever you need help with. I am an open book. My DMs are open. If you enjoyed this live stream, hit me with a like. Actually, most of you guys did. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I try to do these office hours a couple of times a week, so I'll probably be back again on Friday, hanging out for a little bit. In between now and then, like I say, if you need me, hit me up. I hope you have a great rest of your trading day, and we'll talk again soon, all right? Yeah. All right. Take care. Bye.